All right, so here we go. I'm going to do IXL first. IXL is available K through 5, and IXL has been really nice. They opened up everything for us. So we normally only have math during the year. IXL opened up the language arts and science and social studies for us. So everything is open for your students. The second half, we'll look at RAZ Kids. RAZ Kids is available K through 3. Okay, I'm going to put in the chat the attendance page as well as a handout for you. So here's the attendance. And then IXL and RAZ. Okay, so on the handout, looks like this. The top part is about IXL. And the main part about IXL with student login and students not being able to get in is they have to be on that MW sign-in page, this link, because when they're signing in, it's their normal login, last name, first initial, last 3 digits of their lunch code. But the problem is IXL puts on that @MWCSD at the end of their username. And when students go to this page, that's automatically added for them. If they do a Google search and find just a generic IXL page, it's not going to have this piece for them, and they're not going to be able to get in. IXL login does work through ClassLink. So if kids are using ClassLink, they would just click on IXL. It'll automatically log them in. There's a couple guides here. A home learning guide, a guide for something called diagnostics, and we're going to take a look at what diagnostics entails and what it is. And then there's a video library for IXL. So that's what we have on here for IXL. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at logging in as a teacher into IXL. All right, so this is the teacher page for IXL. And this is called my dashboard. This is my starting point. And they've put together a lot of different resources for us that are available for you to take a look at. If I go to the Learning tab at the top, this is where I'm going to see the different skills. And these are the math skills. I can also view the skills by topics. So if I want to see all the addition skills, regardless of grade, I can look at them that way. I can also look at a skills plan. So in here, I pinned the 3rd grade math book, but they have standards. So you can search for activities through standards. And then they also have these textbook plans. Now they have Envision Math 3rd, 4th, and 5th. But I don't think this is our 1st, 2nd book, this Envision Math 2.0. Do we have any 1st or 2nd grade teachers in there? And I'm not sure why they don't have it in this form for you guys.
That's not our 2nd grade math program.
I did not think so. So for whatever reason, 2nd grade's not in here.
Okay.
And that's not our 1st.
Okay, so it starts at 3rd then for Envision Math. And it'll link the skills right to your lessons for 3rd, 4th, and 5th. K1-2 might want to stick down here more at the New York State standards if you want to look for skills that way. So that's grades, topics, and skill plans. If I go back to grades, and I know I'm teaching, let's say 2nd grade, and I want to look at all the skills. So now I want to go ahead and decide that I want my students to do certain things. So I know a lot of you go in there and say, I want you to do H1, but I think a lot of parents are getting confused by what does H1 mean. So they've added these little stars here now. So if I want them to practice some subtraction, Okay, subtract 1-digit number from a 2-digit number. If I hover over the star, my students appear. And I only put Ella and Michael Landers in my class. So I can assign it to all my students by clicking on this star, or I can pick which students I want to see this assignment. When the students log in, and I'll go in as Ella so you can see, they actually see a little tab that says skills recommended by your teacher. And they can go right to those skills. The other thing is I signed these ones last time I was in here. I can turn these off now. Maybe I don't want them to do those anymore. We're done with time. We did that yesterday. So I'm going to turn those off and turn on subtraction. Okay, so that's a neat little thing, neat way for you to push out and show the students what you want them to work on. It's available in language arts, and it's available in science, and it's available in social studies as well. So you can look at the different skills. Here's science. And science only starts at 2nd grade. There's no K1 topics in there, and I think the same is for social studies. Okay. I'm going to go back to math though, and I want to show you this little diagnostic area. So this, they call it the diagnostic arena. So if you have your students go into the diagnostic arena, it kind of is like a little game to them. And I'll show you from the student view where they start to answer questions, and IXL starts to pinpoint where they are under different subjects or different headings in math. So I started playing it around with it for my fake student, Ella. So if I click on here, I can start to see at a glance where Ella is for her overview, for her numbers and operations. And it starts to give them recommendations of skills they can practice. And it goes through algebra, fractions, geometry. Now, I didn't get through the whole diagnostic with Ella, but I started answering. And you can start to see this bar appear for her. So there's diagnostics for math and there's diagnostics for language arts. Both of them are available for the students. The other thing you can start to look at are trouble spots that your students are having. So as students start to practice, and I don't have a lot of students in here to see trouble spots, it'll start to show your students and where they're struggling or where they're having issues. You can look by student at how they're doing. You can see how long they've practiced. You can see the questions they've answered. You can drill down all the way into the actual question, and you can see exactly the answers they gave. You can see what skills have been practiced. You can look at a score grid. And if they were on right now, you could actually see live how they were answering. That's great at school, but I don't know how, it might not help us now. Also in this teacher resource tab here, there are a lot of materials for you and opportunities for you to learn more about IXL. I think there's a lot more in here than a lot of us realize. There's a toolkit, there's printable resources, there's implementation guides. You can do webinars. There's PD available, but this might be at a cost. And then there's also some videos down here that you can watch all on IXL.
Beth, I'm sorry. How did you get that again?
The teacher resources?
Yes.
It's just on this green bar at the top where it says teacher resources.
Got it. Thanks.
Yep. So you have learning, diagnostic, analytics. So analytics is where you're going to see how your students are doing. And because I only threw poor little Ella, who's a fake student, in here, I only have one skill mastered and I don't have a lot of data in here. But as your students start to work, you're going to see more data available for you in here. All right, do you have any questions about the teacher view? All right, then I want to go in and I want to show you the student view. So I'm going to log out as me. And I'm going to log in as Ella, my fake student. Okay, so when the students log in, they start at this recommendations page, just so you're aware, and it throws up things that they think your students should practice. Are those skills that I starred for Ella. 5 skills are suggested. So when I click on here, I'm going to see those suggested skills. So you can point your students to that. Work on your suggested skills first. The other part you have to realize is that IXL works off of what's called a SMART score. So it's not a true 100% when they get there. Every time they get a question right, their score goes up. Every time they get a question wrong, their score goes down. So sometimes, to avoid frustration for students, you might be better off saying to them, get a SMART score of 80 before you go to the next topic, rather than trying to get them to 100 every time. So if I go down here to, let's say, this adding one, and I'm going to try it, you can see it from the student point of view. They get the question. They have a speaker where they can read. It'll read the word to them. They can add their answer and submit. My SMART score went up 10 points. So it's not really a percentage. If I answer correctly again, my SMART score is going to go up again. If I answer incorrectly, my SMART score goes down. So I went down 2 points, and it gives me an explanation of what happened. Okay, and it gives me a strategy to solve it. Once I look at the explanation, I can click got it and carry on. As they get closer to that 100 and they lose points, some kids can get frustrated. So if you want to say get a SMART score of 80 or get a SMART score of 90, that would be up to you. In here is the skills plan for the students. So because I pinned this book, they're going to see that book. Okay, and then this goes through what chapter they're on in the book. So for 3rd grade, this is fantastic. I wish they had it for the other grades as well. I think I heard a question. Okay, no question. Let's go back to Ella. So if you want the student to start working in that diagnostic area, you would direct them to click on this word up here, diagnostic, at the top. And they call it an arena. So they don't really call it a test, but the student starts to see where they're falling out in these different topic areas. And it gives them recommended skills. So you could tell them to go ahead and try out the arena. And they actually get to choose which question they want to try. If they get it right, it tells them great job. They have an option of saying, I don't know this yet. I'm not sure. So I can click, I don't know this yet. And it says, okay, we'll try that later. And now I get a new question. If I get it wrong, it just says, it's okay. We'll make sure we work on it later. And then it gives me a recommendation of some skills for me to practice. So that's the diagnostic section from the student point of view. In the students, they also can see their trouble spots. They can see how they're doing. They can see how many questions they've answered, how long they've been practicing. They can see this as well as you. So I could click on trouble spots, and I haven't done enough yet for anything to be in there. Okay, any questions for the student view? Okay. Any questions on IXL at all?
Beth, are there assessments that you can assign students?
I don't believe there are so-called assessments. Let me log out of Ella. There's that diagnostic area. And then there's the practice areas. All right, so here's your dashboard. So you're really just doing the skills. There's really not, there's the diagnosis section. I don't think there's an assessment section. Now, Kay's asking about setting up a weekly skills plan, like the one provided in the spotlight. I'm not sure what you mean, Kay.
It looked to me like the spotlight has like pre-set up, links to IXL topics for each day of the week. And I've only been able to like assign topics on an individual basis.
Yeah, the only way to, so this is in the actual next gen learning standards for grade 2. So the only way to really assign things to student is to use those stars. There's no real other way to push things out. And you can't say, I want her only to see this on Tuesday. That star is gonna show up right away.
Okay, and then how do you keep track of what you've assigned to each student?
There's no way within this without looking at what you've assigned.
Okay, thanks.
It's just that little star system. When a teacher puts this under assignment, is a student expected to turn it in? And how do they do that? Or do they just have to look them up in IXL to see what they've done? They have to look them up in IXL to see what they've done. Because if you put it in Google Classroom, it's just going to be a link out to IXL. It's not the actual assignment within Google Classroom. So there's really no turn it in or way to check it in Google Classroom. Christina, there should not be a time limit. If the student is not logged into their Monroe Woodbury account, they only get 20 questions, and sometimes it'll log them out because they've exceeded their 20 questions. But if he's logged into his Monroe account, he should not get kicked out. Yeah, double check, because sometimes the kids just click on IXL and they don't ever log themselves in. And IXL will let them practice without logging in, but they only get 20 questions. So that's another big troubleshooting thing with parents is the 20 question piece and how do you actually log on to our Monroe account, making sure that they're on the right page. Yeah, so that can work. For the older kids, especially Christine, they can take a screenshot of their mastery and then they submit the screenshot. That might be harder for our K1s. But as a teacher, the area where you can go in and see what the kids have done, if you go into analytics, you can drill down by student and you can see exactly what they've mastered. You can see exactly what questions they've answered. You can see what they got right, what they got wrong, and how they answered it. I mean, this So if I go to Ella, I have to answer a couple of questions now. I can see the 8 questions that she's answered and how she's done on them. So I can click on her. I can see the last 30 days for her. I can see exactly what she's done every day. So I can go into her Friday plan and I can see exactly how she answered the question. I can see what she answered right, what she answered wrong, the exact answer she typed in when she got it wrong. So the teachers can go right in here and see everything that the students have been working on without screenshots. There's a score grid where they can start to see how the students are doing in the different topics in here. So when I went to the score grid now I'm seeing all the topics, and I can see how they've done. So like here's the adding one, and I can see that Ella got 17. She's got a 17 SMART score right now. She answered 3 questions, and it took her approximately a minute. So this is another way to see scores. If you start playing around in here, there's so many different ways to see what the kids are doing. You can look at it by question. There's a question log of all the questions that the students have done. So I can select a student, I can select Ella, and then I can see a log of all her math questions. And it's showing me what she's worked on with the dots, so I can see and I can view her questions. Well, actually, she didn't practice those. When you get into your kids, they've done more than I've played around with this one, and you'll be able to see more in here, all the summary of everything they've done. Any more questions there? All right, if there's no more questions there, I do want to move on to RAZ Kids. Okay. Now, RAZ Kids is available K3 for everybody. There are some accounts in the older grades through ENL teachers and through special education teachers. So if you're teaching an older grade and you feel that this would benefit your student, you can reach out to a reading teacher or to an ENL teacher to have students added in the older grades. So in this handout again, I'll throw this in there again for you in the chat. For the RAZ Kids part, this is the student login page. Now, the student logins for these are your teacher name and then whatever password you set for them. I believe K1 does the picture passwords, and then 2nd and 3rd grade do their lunch code passwords. So if students aren't able to log into RAZ Kids, the classroom teachers are going to have to help them with that. So here's some teacher resources. There's recorded webinars from RAZ, there's a video library, and there's some teacher tips. Also, for student resources, there's parent letters. There's 2 videos, one on how to sign in, and there's another video you can push out to your students on how to record their own books. So these are great resources to push out in your Google Classroom for tutorials for students. But let's go ahead and look at RAZ Kids from the teacher point of view. Oh. Sorry, I have too many passwords. Okay, so this is the teacher point of view. And everybody, all classroom teachers K3 have what's called RAZ Plus. And RAZ Plus is a combination of RAZ Kids and Reading A to Z. And they've kind of combined it and they call it RAZ Plus. So I can make this a little bigger for you guys. So in here, I've got my file cabinet, and that's where I can start to save stories that I want to look at later, I want to push out to the students later. I can manage my students, and then there's a teacher corner. This teacher corner has a ton of information for you. There's the leveling charts in here. There are live webinars. There's standards and correlation, and then there's all kinds of instructional tools. So there's a lot in here for you to take a look at. But let's go into manage students to start. Now, I believe last I looked, all K3 teachers had set up their classes. So all students should be in here at this point. Now, I added Ella as a new student, just as a demo student. And then what I was able to do with Michael, I was able to share Michael. So when you go in, I'm viewing all my students. If I go into add, and I'm a reading teacher, I can actually share a student with another teacher. So I can add a brand new student, or I can share. And sharing allows you to search for a student and then add them to your class. And that's how I was able to add Michael as a shared student. If I go back to my roster, in here, I can turn on and off the incentives. So the incentives are that little robot they can design, and also their little rocket ship room. How do I want the portal to look for each student? This must look tiny to you guys. So I can have a primary room or an intermediate room. The intermediate room is usually more appropriate for 3rd grade and up. I can edit the student. I can send that student a message, or I can remove the student. So those are the options in the General tab. In this RAZ Plus tab, I can now pick their level assignment. So this is when they go into that level up part. If they finish all the ebooks, they'll automatically move up to the F books. But if I want to force their level, I can click on here and I can force Ella to skip to an F. This is the reading room, okay? So in the reading room is available for them for kind of free choice reading or topic reading. And you can limit, and I'll show you in settings, you can limit what levels are in the reading room. We used to be able to turn on and off what they call the book room, and now they call it the reading room. But we're not allowed to turn it on and off anymore, but we can limit what levels are in there for the students. So in here, it's saying make English resources and additional world languages resources available to students. Customized by selecting the language resources and by limiting the level in the range. So I'm going to show you how to do that in settings. So I'm leaving this on for English and Spanish. But if I come up here to my settings tab, okay, I can set my grade level. I can select what kind of emails I want. If I want to get any kind of email reports weekly or monthly. How do I want to display the students' names? We leave that at first name. Allow students to view the last 10 completed assignments. That's up to you if you want them to see completed things. But here's your reading room. So I can either make it so that my reading room will show only books 3 levels below the student and 1 level above. Or maybe I only want the student to be able to see 2 levels below and 2 levels above. And you can make those decisions on how you want your reading room to look. The other choice, you can set it up as by locking levels. So if I click on this one, I can grab the slider and I can lock what levels I want to be in that reading room. So if I only want this section to be in there, that's all that's going to be in there. But this is for all my students. So you can decide how you want to set up your reading room. Constructed response. So some of the book quizzes, especially when you get into the upper levels, they have a constructed response. So do you want to turn that constructed response option on or off? So that's the last option in here. And it would be for reading room and level up. It would turn on constructed responses. So again, that's a teacher choice, how you want to set that up. So I'm going to go ahead and X this out. So all of this is in your roster. So any questions about your roster or the settings within your roster? The question is, do they lose stars if we force level them up? No, they don't lose their stars. They don't lose their points. The question is, if you're sharing a student, can I edit to? It's constructive response, the quiz. Yeah, so the constructive response questions are going to be in the quiz, Lauren. And if you're sharing a student, can you edit to? I don't know, Adrian. Let's look at Michael and see if I can. So he's a shared student for me. So if I click on edit, no. So this is a shared student. You have limited access to editing information. I can see that he's in Lisa Landau's class, and I can see his information, but I can't change this. But I can stop sharing. So if I click here, that would stop me from sharing. Class chart location. Here he is in his class, and he's not in a group. But if I go into Ella's pencil, because I created her as a demo student, I can adjust Ella. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the reports you're going to get. When students start to read books, you're going to start to get reports. And you're going to get to see how many listens, how many reads, and how many quizzes, how long they were on, how many stars they earned, and how many logins. Now, I haven't read anything for Ella, so there's not much in there. But if I click on Michael, I can see that he listened to this book, he read the book, he tried the quiz once, he tried it a second time, and he tried it a third time. So he tried it 3 times and he got his perfect score. You can also see skills. So these skills are based on the questions that they answer based on the books. I can see the assignments that have been pushed out. So all of these assignments are level up assignments. So he's in level K. So I could take a look at that. He's finished one of the level K books. And I can also see what he needs to complete in order to go to the next level. Right now, there's no assessments for Michael, but I'll show you how to push out an assessment. And then you can see level progress in here as well. So he's been working in K. So that's in reports. Assignments. Once you assign something, it's going to appear in here. So I've assigned plants to Ella, and I assigned Arctic animals to Ella. And we'll go ahead and look at how to assign. And you can also view your assignments by student. In the basket. This is, I assigned Ella an assessment on most common words she had to read all the common words. And this is in the basket because she finished this, and I can go ahead and listen to her running record and see how she's doing. Questions about any of those views? Okay, so let's go into how do you assign something and how do you do an assessment. When I'm ready to start assigning things, I actually have to go up to this RAZ Plus tab at the top. So when I click on the RAZ Plus tab, it actually brings me out to all the books that are available for me to assign to my students. So now I'm in RAZ Plus, and I can go to this resource tab, and I can look for leveled texts or assessments. Let's start with leveled texts. If I want to assign a specific text to the whole class or to certain students, I can go, maybe I want something fiction-based to go along with what we're doing in social studies. So I can take a look in here. Nope, I went to the wrong thing. Let's do nonfiction. Let's go nonfiction series. So even though I picked the wrong thing, I can now go over here and switch what I want them to see. So these are themed ones. And I can then click on Giants of the World. Let's take a closer look at this one. And I can see in here, here are the leveled books that are in this series. So if I want to go ahead and assign the elephants one to my class, I can either assign it now or I can add it to my file cabinet, and then it'll be in my file cabinet so I don't have to go search for it again. But I'm going to go ahead and click assign. And it's asking me, do you want to assign all pieces or do you just want them to read it? Do you not want them to be able to listen? Do you want them to have to read it? So you can decide which activities to push out. You can also decide from this view to include the constructed response questions in the quiz if you want them. From here, I can select to all students, or I could pick and choose which students are going to get this story. And then I can click assign. And you saw when we were in as Ella, you can see, well, I'll go in as Ella, and then you can see where the assigned books are. But I also want to show you how to assign a assessment. So if you go up to resources and you choose assessment, there's benchmark books, benchmark passages, retelling rubrics, alphabet letter naming, phonological awareness, phonics, high frequency words, and fluency timed reading. So if I go to, if I go to benchmark books, these are the levels that are available, and there's 22 books available at the different levels. So I had Ella at an E, so maybe I want her to try one of these E books, E-leveled books. So I'm going to click on the C. I can see what the book looks like, and then I can click assign. I'm going to assign this to Ella. So let's take a look at Ella's side, unless you have questions about how to assign things. All right, so I'm going to log out as me, and I'm going to log in as a student. I'm going to go to the kids login. That's the right teacher. Here's Ella. Notice that Michael wasn't on my roster sheet out there because Michael's still going to be logging in through his teacher, even though he's shared with me. He's still going to do his teacher login. And I'm going to be able to click go. So even though I can assign Michael things, he's logging in through Mrs. Landau's class. All right, so when students come in, they see 4 areas that they can go to. This My Assignments and Flight Check are not going to be on their planet unless you assign them something. And Flight Check is where the assessment is. So these 2 don't show up until you assign them something in here. This is their level up. This is what they're used to going to at school. And this is the reading room that you set up the levels for. This is where they're going to see any messages you send them. And they can see their statistics, and they can also go to their star zone. So let's look at my assignments first. So in here, I can see the 3 items that were assigned to Ella. So then she can go ahead and work on those assignments. So maybe in your directions for students, you can say, complete your new assignment first if you want them to do something like that. The other piece is the flight check. Here's the flight check that I added for her. And if she hits on record, she's going to be able to go through and allow her microphone and say the words. Her, big, no, next. And it works the same if you were doing it with a book. You're going to get this recording in your section with your students. Remember where we saw that little basket? When a student completes that assignment is going to show up in the basket. And notice that this disappeared now. They can only run through it one time. You would have to push it out again to them if you wanted to do it a second time. Questions about the student view? Okay, so I ran through that really quick. So are there any questions about anything at all in RAZ Kids?
Beth,
Yeah,
hi, hon. One of my parents asked if I would be giving points out after they finish an assignment or books. Can you show how I would do that?
sure. So I have to go back into RAZ Kids and I'm going to log out of Ella and get back in as me. So when you're in your classroom and you go to your roster, okay, so here's Ella and here's that little send a message. If I click on send a message, I can type my message here. I can even record a message to send to her that she'll be able to listen to, and then I can award bonus stars. So here's where you would select how many bonus stars you want to send to the student. So I can send her 100 bonus stars and send her a message. So it's in the class roster section under the little send a message. Other questions? Yeah, so Kay's saying that a suggestion from RAD's benchmark passages are shorter than the assessment purposes. So that's a good tip, Kay. Can you go over the recording part again? Yeah, sure, Megan. I'll go over it from the teacher side or the student side, Megan? Okay. Will I get notification that they did the assignment, or do I have to go into each student's profile? You can turn on those notifications. So I'll show you that again too. I go back in here. If you go into these settings, you can turn on your weekly activity report and you'll see who's worked on things. And if students completed one of the assessments, you'll see in your basket. See, I have 2 in my basket now. And then you'll be able to go into reports to see what the students have been working on. So you'll see here if they've logged in. And you can even say, I only want to see today. Who logged in today? So if I go in here, I can see which students went in today. I can see which students went in the last 7 days. So there's a lot of things in here you can start to take a look at. As far as assigning a recording or an assessment. So if you want to assign one of those assessments, you're going to go up to the RAZ Plus tab. You're going to go to resources and you're going to do an assessment. Now, all of the books within RAZ Kids, they can actually read, and I can show you that from the student point of view. So in here, so this is what Kay was recommending. She's recommending doing the book benchmark passages versus the books. So if I do a passage, I'm going to select a passage to assign. I'm going to click on assign. I'm going to select Ella and assign it. Okay. If I go to my assignments page, so it's showing me up here, I can go, but if I go back up here to manage students, and I go to my assignments page, I don't know why I'm not seeing that passage, but I can see the running record here. Okay. So let me log out as me again and go in as Ella and show you the recording part. So now I've got a flight check again. It shows up here. And Ella can go in and she's going to hit that microphone and read this. This is the first one I sent out. It must be taking a little while for it to catch up because the second one that I pushed out is not here yet. But students can also go in their level up. If I pick a book, let me go back and I want to do the reading one. I want to do reading. They can record right from here. So you can have them record, right? Any book that you want. So if I click the record microphone and I hit this record button, animal dads. Animal dads. Some animal dads don't help much. These dads don't help at all. So you're going to get that recording. The student can stop it, they can redo it, and they can listen to it from this view. When they do a running record one, they're not able to change all those things. They're not able to redo, and they're not able to stop and start. Whereas when they're doing it for a book in their level up, they can. And the little directions that are on here, this little video is on how to record the books within the level up and within the reading room. Any questions about that? Any questions about RAZ at all? There's more in there. I mean, and the little videos in their teacher center is very good. They have a lot of information for you. You're welcome. Did everybody get the attendance sheet and everything? I'll throw the attendance sheet back in. Oh, let me stop recording.